Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the podcast. My name is Toby,
And I'm Seth.
and we are the Swinny Bros.
We welcome you to the Swinny Bros podcast.
So, it's been a crazy week 1 in the NFL. Hearts have been broken, remotes have been thrown, and the Baltimore Ravens have disowned their entire team. There's much to discuss, there's much to go over. So we'll just jump straight into it and cover all the news of week 1 and everything that's happened because, well, Seth, there's been a lot that's happened.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest upsets that we've seen this weekend, just, oh my gosh, breaking news, is Xavier Worthy suffering his dislocation of his shoulder in the Chargers game. His timeline to return is still to be determined. He suffered a dislocated right shoulder. He's still undergoing tests. It's unclear how much time that he will miss. However, surgery is still an option. So, we haven't heard it's pending more tests and consultation with more doctors. I have read that there is a chance that he might be able to play and just wear a brace, but surgery is not off the table at this point.
Yeah, that was tough, especially if you started him in fantasy this week. Really unfortunate for Xavier Worthy, especially considering it wasn't even from an opponent. He just literally got bulldozed by Travis Kelce, which when you watched it in real time, it didn't look that bad. But then when you watched it in slow-mo, all of that weight just went straight to his shoulder. So even if he doesn't have surgery, that's still that's hard to come back.
When you're talking about your shoulder, that's a long time for rehab for your shoulder.
And we would know. Both of us have had shoulder surgery. So it's not fun. It's not fun at all. But prayers for him anyways. Hope he gets back to a speedy recovery and is able just to be healthy, because that's the most important thing. The next big segment for me for breaking news was A.J. Brown did not get a lot of action for the Eagles against the Cowboys. They had a spectacular run game, and they didn't necessarily need as much through the air. But for fantasy owners specifically, A.J. Brown was a bust this week. He did not have any sort of contribution other than blocking, which is good, but that's obviously not going to get you points. But we highlighted it in one of the first episodes, whether he would be a boom or bust player, and he wasn't really targeted at all. I mean, he put up 2 points in fantasy?
I don't know that he did that.
I don't even know if it was 2 points.
But I mean, even if you don't look at a fantasy perspective, he had one target. That was it. One targeted. He was only targeted once for 8 yards, and that was it all game. Like, that's just not good. There's a lot of people there's 4 people in front of him for more target share.
Which, to be fair, there were numerous players this week in fantasy that underperformed. It wasn't just A.J. Brown. I mean, even Devontae Smith, he had 3 catches for 16 yards. No one on the Eagles wide receiver core had a spectacular time. There are lots of busts this week for fantasy. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. It was Bo Nix. Yeah, I can't say he didn't because it was rough. But there was a lot of boomer busts. But I think A.J. Brown was the biggest one for me because it was like, wow, they won, and he still one catch for 8 yards. The third segment for major news, I think, has to be the most spectacular NFL game I have watched in recent years. The Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. That was insane. I couldn't believe it. I almost, real talk, this is straight up, I almost took the game off. I was like all the other fans that just walked out the stadium. I was like, there's no way. Every time the Bills score, Derrick Henry just looks insane. And then I was like, you know what? It's still Josh Allen. Let me just watch a little bit longer. And oh my gosh, I'm so happy I did. That was one of the most, and I only got 4 hours of sleep and went to work the next day, but it was still, that was wild.
Well, that's like, for you younger people out there that's never got to see the 1993 AFC wildcard game with the Bills and the Oilers, buddy, that was about the same. But yeah, you can't ever snooze on the Bills. Never can snooze, especially Josh Allen.
MVP for a reason.
And another news, Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers have placed George Kittle on injured reserve as of yesterday for a minimum of at least 4 games. Don't know the extent, but he does have a hamstring injury, so that's going to hurt. So right now, with him getting hurt, that leaves like Ricky Pearsall is like the standalone, receiving guy in San Francisco right now. So
But Christian McCaffrey had a good game. Christian McCaffrey had solid numbers for week 1. Yeah, so 49ers and the Chiefs kind of in the same boat right now. Juwan Jennings, I think, has been cleared from his injury as well, so the 49ers will at least have him. His shoulder injury, last time I heard, was not believed to be that serious because he went out in the fourth quarter with a minor shoulder injury. They were a little bit concerned. A lot of people having shoulder injuries, but it turns out that he's okay. The coach said that he avoided any significant injury after they scanned his shoulder. The scans came back clean and that he should be good to go for week 2. So if you have him in fantasy or you're just a 49ers fan in general, that's good news, especially with George Kittle being out. But any other major injuries that we
Not that I know of.
I think that wraps up breaking news, 20 Bros breaking news of the week. Shall we move on to week 1?
Let us move on.
A lot to go over in week 1. Obviously, the very first game of the NFL week 1, which was really fun to watch, and I quite enjoyed it, was the Cowboys and the Eagles. I'll let you go over your thoughts first before I jump into this.
Okay, first off, as far as just picking this game, we both chose the Eagles to win this game. We were in agreement. There was no question there. I think the biggest thing that hurt the Cowboys, I'm not going to say CeeDee Lamb. He's got enough hate for the last few days. I mean, we're all human. He did have a couple of good passes that he missed, but the Cowboys were scoreless the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and that was the biggest factor, I think, in that game for them. Eagles scored all 3 out of 4 quarters. They scored first, second, third. They were scoreless in the fourth quarter. But, I mean, to go up against the Super Bowl champs and only lose by 4 points, I mean, really, when you look at the stats for this game, it's pretty even. Cowboys had 307 total yards. The Eagles had 302. So not really that much of a difference for yardage. The Cowboys did have 1 turnover. Eagles didn't have any turnovers. Time of possession was a big difference. Eagles had it for 34-52 versus the Cowboys 25-08. And then when you look at the box score, like Jalen Hurts, he had 152 passing yards. He did have 62 rushing yards, but he had 152 passing yards. Saquon didn't have a big game. He had 60 rushing yards and he had 24 receiving yards, so he was a little, slower than most of the time. Dak Prescott had 188 passing yards, but really nothing to brag about offensively. This was a very just even matchup. The first couple touchdowns were for the Cowboys were 1-yard runs by Javonte Williams. Jalen Hurts' first touchdown was a 4-yard rushing touchdown. But, I think that was a pretty good inclination of what we're going to see out of both teams for the rest of this season.
Well, I think Jalen Carter getting ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott probably, you would think, wouldn't have helped that much. But I think the biggest key to this game was it started out really fast-paced for both teams. Both teams went on the board early. Dallas, Philly scored 1 touchdown apiece in the first quarter. And then Dallas missed that extra point in the second quarter. It was 13-14. But it was like, wow, this is going to be the defense. You could feel Micah Parsons' absence on the Cowboys defensive line. You could tell they were getting eat up. But you also felt the Eagles' absence on several key players that they lost this year that signed big contracts elsewhere. And you were concerned for a little bit because it was like, wow, the Eagles' defense was like a big highlight last year and they didn't look the greatest. But the Cowboys' offense started out really well. So that was the biggest thing. But the delay that happened because of the weather completely changed the scope for the rest of the game. There was only 3 points after that. 1 field goal for the Eagles by Jake Elliott, and that was it. That was the rest of the points. And I think that completely killed the offense for both teams. I don't know if I would say that it was the defense made enough adjustments, but it just seemed like they lost both offenses seemed to lose their groove. And the penalties, the Eagles committed 9 penalties for 110 yards.
That's a lot.
And that can be a killer for any team, let alone a team trying to regain their supremacy as back-to-back Super Bowl champions. Dallas, most stat lines were very even. Dallas only had 4 penalties. They were both good on third down. Time of possession was slightly an edge of the Eagles. But overall, the Eagles still, I think after that that delay, they just went to business and handled enough to get over the Cowboys. But if you're a Cowboys fan, as much as I dogged on them last episode, I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. And yeah, CeeDee Lamb's getting a lot of hate, but you can't just blame one player for the game. You can't go scoreless in 2 quarters and say that it's just CeeDee Lamb's fault. And that's just like saying Derrick Henry was the reason that the Ravens lost to the Bills. That's not how it works. Your defense gave up all those points back to back to back. You can't blame CeeDee Lamb.
You win as a team, you lose as a team.
Exactly. But still, a lot of good for Cowboys fans and even for Eagles fans. That there was good promise. There was a good game for both teams. I think that gives you a good scope of how both these teams are going to go throughout the season. Game 2, the shocker, I think, for a lot of people. The long, curly, blonde-haired man, the myth, who is shining right now in LA. The Chargers knocked off the Chiefs over in, where were they playing at? Brazil?
Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Sao Paulo, Brazil. 27-21. Chargers to the Chiefs. And this was a fun game to watch. And honestly, I didn't expect nearly as good of output from the Chargers as I did. But I got to give credit to the Chiefs with having Patrick Mahomes with hardly anyone to throw to. Hollywood Brown really stepped up for them and had a major contributing for this game. But that was a fun game to watch. Really, really fun game to watch. What was your biggest takeaway from this game specifically?
Well, I mean, the Chargers showed up to play. You know, they're showing that they are a force to be reckoned with in this AFC West division. And they turned a lot of heads. I mean, nobody expected the Chargers to win. You ask anybody except, Chargers fans, everybody's going to pick the Chiefs. But, I mean, they outscored the Chiefs in yards by almost 50 yards. 47. They had 47 more total yards of offense. They had 394 total yards of offense over the Chiefs, 347. They had 4 more first downs than the Chiefs. They had the ball for 5 more minutes than the Chiefs. They just, shocked everybody, including myself. I know a lot of people is kind of, skeptical about Omarion Hampton, but, first game,
I don't think he did bad.
He had 15 carries for 48 yards. Quentin Johnson was a big help for that game. Him and Ladd McConkey were the 2 top wide receivers for that game, and I think as a Chargers fan, that's refreshing to see that you've got options for receiving. And I mean, it was great. Anytime that the Chiefs go down, it's a win in my book.
It was pretty even stats. Justin Herbert, fantastic performance. He had a rating 88.9, 25-34 for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns. Dropped crazy good numbers. The consistency you want to see if you're an LA fan. Patrick Mahomes, 24-39, 258 yards, 1 touchdown. Not too bad, 81.8 passer rating. He didn't do bad considering the circumstances. Hollywood Brown was obviously a huge contributor, 10 catches for 99 yards. The next closest was Juju Smith with only 5 catches, but it was 55 yards. Travis Kelce with the only touchdown reception. He only had 2 catches. Both teams didn't really have the greatest run game. There was not a lot done on the run. I think both teams have a stout defensive line. And I think Omarion Hampton having to go against the Chiefs defensive line and still putting up, almost 50 yards and 15 carries isn't bad for a rookie. The Chiefs have one of the most stout defensive lines in the league. They are notable for that. They are proud of that. And I think the Chargers have a really good defensive front as well. So you knew this was going to be a pass-heavy game for both teams. Both teams run a pass-heavy offense. You would have liked to see more ground game for the Chiefs if you're a Chiefs fan. They didn't really have a whole lot. Isaiah Pacheco, 25 yards. Kareem Hunt, 16 yards. That's not even 100 yards rushing for either team. That's not really what you want to see. You always want to have an established ground game, but still, the passing was good for both teams. But the Chargers did look better. I really do think they looked better. Even though it was a 6-point game at the end of things, I think the Chargers still looked like the better team throughout the game. So fine with me. Good riddance. Moving on to the third game.
Oh, that wasn't a game. That was terrible. Cardinals and Saints was a total snooze fest.
I was going to say, I completely lost my tab, so go ahead.
Like, complete snooze fest. Like, I tried watching a little bit of it because I was bouncing back and forth between, 3 or 4 games, just trying to catch what I could. But, I mean, Cardinals put up 20 points. Saints put up 13. Cardinals didn't score anything in the fourth quarter. Saints didn't score anything in the first and third, but it's still, low scoring game. Not really a lot to brag about. Cardinals had 276 total yards of offense. The Saints had 315, which is better than the Cardinals. But it's not like, hey, this is the game of the week. Like, did you watch the Cardinals game yesterday? Like, that's not what you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray, 163 passing yards. And the receiving really wasn't much better. Marvin Harrison stepped up as the leading receiver.
Yep.
He had 6 targets for that game. Amassed 71 yards and a touchdown. So I was glad to see that for him. Like to see rookies, have a better year than the year previous. And James Conner got a receiving touchdown.
Yeah.
Not a lot really to brag about for the rushing for the Cardinals either. Trey Benson and James Conner kind of split carries there. James Conner had more, but Trey Benson outran James Conner by 30 yards. Chad Ryland did miss a field goal, but they still won. Spencer Rattler, 214 yards.
Not bad.
Alvin Kamara, slow run game, 45 yards for 11 carries. And he did have a couple receptions for 12 yards, but really just not a whole lot to talk about this game as far as action goes.
Kind of felt like a lesser of two evils almost. It was not to say two bad teams, but we didn't have a lot of expectations coming to this game, and I think the game proved that. Still both teams really in development, still both teams kind of figuring out their young players and trying to fix some previous mishaps, so not a whole lot to go on there, but I did pick the Cardinals to beat the Saints, so I'm happy about that one. Another game, I don't have these in order, by the way, so you might
Oh, do you not?
The other game that I wouldn't count as a game at all, it was just plumb embarrassing for one side of the field. The Colts and the Dolphins.
Oh, yeah!
The Colts absolutely embarrassed the Dolphins and embarrassed me because I said that they would get destroyed by the Dolphins, and they destroyed the Dolphins. Daniel Jones did not look like a backup quarterback. Daniel Jones looked like a playoff caliber quarterback. He had an incredible game. Michael Pittman Jr. in that connection, like Seth highlighted, looked fantastic. The Dolphins looked atrocious. I don't even know what happened in that game. I don't even think Tyreek Hill knows. You see a video of him complaining on the sidelines. What were you complaining about? Everything? Probably. It was a bad game. It was an embarrassing game.
The Colts had over double the amount of total yards than the Dolphins.
That's crazy.
Colts coming in with 418 total yards of offense versus the Dolphins 211.
They went up 30-0 at one point. That's terrible. The Dolphins put up 70 on the Broncos 2 years ago, and now the Colts are putting 30 on them with no points.
The only touchdown that they had was with Achane, I believe. I think that was a passing play to. No, not Achane. Who was it that got the touchdown? Oh, Tua. Tua got the touchdown. Yeah, that was, if you're a Colts fan, the Colts are looking fantastic. If you're a Dolphins fan, it's going to be a long season.
I would not be a Dolphins fan this year. Pick anyone else.
I know a few. I won't call them out, but it's going to be a long season, But the Colts, buddy, they're looking good. Really good. Jonathan Taylor looked good. He had 18 carries for 71 yards. Michael Pittman Jr., he had a touchdown, 80 yards. Tyler Warren had 76 yards for his initial game. That's really good. He was not able to get a touchdown, but he was targeted one more time than Michael Pittman Jr. Tyler Warren was targeted 9 times, and Michael Pittman Jr. was targeted 8 times. So, Colts looking really good.
Looking good indeed. Lots of promise, lots of hope if you're Colts fans. We'll go over more about the Colts later in this session. Moving on to another pick that I completely fumbled, the Jaguars and the Panthers. I picked the Panthers because I really thought that they were going to start out good this year, and they still looked like the Panthers of the last previous years. They did not have a good game at all. The Jaguars defense did look pretty good. I will give them credit there, but the Jaguars, I'm not going to say embarrassed the Panthers, but they looked comfortable. It started out 3-3 after the first quarter. Then they just dropped 17 on them in the second quarter, went to halftime with a 20-3 lead, and the Panthers just never recovered after that. They did their best, if you could say that was their best, and that is pretty disappointing. But the Jaguars looked comfortable. They looked like the better team. They looked like a good team. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty comfortable. It wasn't a very stat-heavy game for anyone on the Jaguars, really, but I think overall it was very promising, and I think it gives you a lot of hope for this season, something that Jaguars fans historically haven't had as much. So a lot of good there in this game, but I can't lie, I was pretty disappointed in the Panthers.
Well, I mean, considering that the Jaguars only had the ball for 2 minutes more, I mean, that's, but I will think that this, I commented on this and highlighted this previously. I think this is going to be the rebirth of Travis Etienne. The Jaguars traded Tank Bigsby, and in this game against the Panthers, Travis Etienne had 16 carries for 143 yards. His biggest rush was 71 yards. That was an awesome run. I thought he was going to get a touchdown on that drive, but and also some surprising things is you didn't really see a lot of involvement from Brian Thomas Jr. He did have a touchdown, but not what I thought he was going to have. I thought he was going to be a lot more involved than that. But obviously the number one targeted person was Travis Hunter. He was targeted 8 times for only 33 yards.
How many people had Travis Hunter outscoring Brian Thomas Jr. in fantasy?
Then, a close second is Brenton Strange and De'Ami Brown. Brian Thomas Jr. was targeted 7 times, but he only had 1 reception. He didn't have a good game.
It was a good running performance from the Jaguars. I think they were trying to establish the ground game, and they did that well. Etienne Jr. looked fantastic. I think everyone should be happy with his performance if you have him on fantasy. And Carolina's rushing, for all credit, Chuba Hubbard did his best. 16 carries, 57 yards. He had 3 catches for 32 yards. Bryce Young, I was trying to give him props, and I really thought maybe this year would be it, but he had a quarterback rating of 20. He had 1 touchdown pass, 2 interceptions, 154 yards. But if you look on the flip side, Trevor Lawrence didn't put up crazy good numbers. He was just consistent. 19 of 31 for 178 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It wasn't anything fantastic, but the Jaguars got it done. And I think that was the important thing for them. But again, another one of those games like the Cardinals and Saints where there just wasn't a lot. I watched some of it and I just kind of got bored, to be honest. It was good to see, but there wasn't any highlights from this game. Moving on to I think one of my favorite games of the week, other than the Bills and the Ravens, was the Steelers and the Jets. The Steelers with a 60-yard field goal from Chris Boswell. That was a fun football game to watch. The Jets looked spectacular. The Steelers looked incredible. Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdown passes. Nobody predicted that. That was a lot of fun, Seth.
Well, as a Jets fan, that's got to give you hope for the Jets season, because for the Jets to hang like they did, I mean, everybody looked good on the Jets. I got to give Justin Fields his due. I was like not expecting a lot, but I mean, he proved me wrong. Big time proved me wrong. Him and Garrett Wilson had just a bombing game together. Justin Fields had 218 yards. Garrett Wilson had 9 targets. He only got 7 out of 9 for 95 yards, and he did have a touchdown. Breece Hall had a good game. Braylon Allen had 6 carries, trying to get in there some. But the biggest thing I think that hurt the Jets for this game was Jalen Ramsey. I think if that had worked out a little bit different, I think the Jets could have won that game. Because when he come and he popped him and they lost the ball, like, that was it. It was Jalen Ramsey, I think, is the whole driving. Not to take away from, everybody else's offensive genius during this game. But Jalen Ramsey, I think, was the deciding factor for this game. Because, I mean, Jets were in there. I thought they were going to win for the longest time.
No, absolutely. I mean, and if you look at the rushing, New York rushed for 182 yards between Breece Hall, Justin Fields, tiny bit of Isaiah Davis, and Braylon Allen. Pittsburgh only ran for 53 yards. Jaylen Warren had 11 carries for 37 yards. The Jets' defensive front end was clobbering him. He could not get anything going. But on the passing side of things, Aaron Rodgers looked like prime Aaron Rodgers. Calvin Austin, 4 receptions, 7 yards, and a touchdown. DK Metcalf, 4 for 83 yards. And when you're going against Jalen Ramsey and you're able to even get good catches for yards and have an average 20 yards per catch, that's good. And that shows the elite status. But Pittsburgh just looked really, really good. Like I said, their run game, I don't think they have a bad run game. They just couldn't get established in the run game because New York was really shutting them down. But no, Justin Fields, he only threw for 1 touchdown, but he was 16 of 22 for 218 yards. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 30 for 244 yards and 4 touchdowns. The stats are neck and neck, and that just shows how the game went. I really didn't know who was going to win the game. It was back and forth, back and forth. There was a point where you really thought the Jets were going to run away with it. And then 14 unanswered points just like that by the Steelers in the span of like 45 seconds. You were like, oh my gosh, like this is a game. And it fully delivered. If you're a Jets fan, you have so much hope for the rest of your season. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, Aaron Rodgers looked really, really good. I don't think hardly anyone expected him to perform that well.
I didn't.
I definitely didn't. I don't know. I wasn't saying I was an Aaron Rodgers down player that he couldn't, but I mean, he's 41. I wasn't expecting, especially after last season, but goes to show everything there. Moving on to the next game that I also picked wrong. An upset, in my opinion. The Buccaneers and the Falcons. The Bucs ran away with this one, 23-20 in a neck-and-neck game, and a great performance from Michael Penix Jr.
Agreed. I've got to find it. You're not in the same order that I am.
We're totally out of order. I do apologize in advance. But to go on this game, I'll just go over the quick stats that really stood out to me for this game. I didn't personally watch this game. I didn't have access to it because I'm a broke boy. I can't afford NFL Red Zone. Baker Mayfield threw for 3 touchdowns, but he didn't have the greatest. He was 17 of 32 for only 167 yards, but he threw for 3 touchdowns. He made it count when it mattered. Michael Penix Jr., 27 of 42 for 298 yards and a touchdown. Atlanta's rushing wasn't the greatest. Only 69 yards on the ground, but Bijan Robinson had 6 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown.
Right.
So there was a lot of short check passes, and you would expect that. You would expect those check downs from Michael Penix Jr., developing quarterback. On the flip side, Tampa Bay had 101 rushing yards in total. Baker Mayfield was the leading rusher, believe it or not, right above Bucky Irving, 14 carries for 37 yards for Bucky. Not the greatest performance. But receiving-wise, Sterling Shepard, Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, 2 touchdown catches for him. We knew, I called it on the fantasy football draft. He was going to be that dark horse of the draft, and he absolutely delivered. Kyle Pitts had a great game, 7 catches for 59 yards. Drake London, 8 catches for 55 yards. It was pretty back and forth. But when you go back and look at the game, it was the Buccaneers really dug deep and pulled that out. They went down early in the first quarter, 7-0, then they scored 10. Atlanta kicked a field goal. It was tied at halftime, and then Tampa Bay came out in the second half, starting out strong with a touchdown. Got 6 points in the fourth quarter, and it was a very close game, but it did shock me. I really did think that the Falcons were going to take this one for the lead, and that was probably my worst pick so far because I really thought the Falcons.
Well, I mean, same. I mean, their offense did not disappoint, and they're looking fantastic. I liked what I saw, especially with Bijan Robinson. I think he's going to be kind of like that Alvin Kamara player for them, using him as a dual role with the pass game and the run game. Younghoe Koo missed a field goal, and I think if he had not missed that field goal, we might be having a different conversation right now. He was 2 for 3 on his field goals. That would have put them up 23-23 and possibly sent the game into overtime. So
44-yard field goal too. That's not a chip shot, but you would expect an NFL kicker to make that.
Especially a veteran like Younghoe Koo. But, Jake Moody had an off game too, so a lot goes into that. But I think that both teams are looking sharp, and I'm really curious to see how this division is going to go for the rest of this season.
Now, I will say, if you consider things from the perspective of the Bucs and the Falcons, most people didn't expect this game to be as close as it was. So does this show that the Buccaneers are one step above what everyone thought they were this season, or does this show that the Falcons still need some work?
I think it just shows that the Buccaneers were ready to play. They addressed the issue of not having Chris Godwin. They're just ready to play. Ready to play.
I couldn't agree more. Like I said, we mentioned this before, but the Buccaneers are typically just that question mark in the NFL.
Always.
But if they start out like that and they stay on that train, there's a lot to hope for Buccaneers fans. But a good game overall. But yeah, these kickers, they got to stop missing field goals. And another game with missed field goals. An ugly game, a terrible game for most fantasy owners. A game that I watched the highlights of, and the highlights just weren't even there. The Bengals and the Browns. Gosh, this was a bad game. I watched a little bit of it, and I just turned it off because I was like, this is terrible. The Browns defense, per usual, every single year we say this, the Browns defense completely throttled the Bengals. There's no doubt about it. And the Browns offense, every single year, it's like the Browns offense has moments where you're like, wow, they finally are doing something. Joe Flacco didn't look bad. He really didn't. But they struggle to be consistent. And the Bengals do have a good defense, but I think the Browns shot themselves in the foot. Per usual, this should have been a Browns victory, and missing a field goal to win the game, this has happened too much. I don't know what's wrong with these kickers, but like, pay me to go miss a bunch of field goals because this is terrible. You get paid to do. We need the ninja meme of people just missing field goals, but that was tough. The Browns absolutely shot themselves in the foot, and they deserve to lose in doing that, but they still they had a lot of opportunities to beat the Bengals. The Bengals didn't look good. I don't think they look good at all.
But they put up 327 yards of offense.
But no
327 yards.
No touchdowns.
The biggest thing I think for the Browns that made the difference was they had 2 turnovers. The Bengals did not have. But, I mean, the Bengals were nothing to brag about. Like, where the heck's Jamar Chase? Where's Joe Burrow? Where's T. Higgins? Yeah, I think the only person that really showed up to play for the Bengals was Chase Brown.
Fine with me. He was on my fantasy team, but no, that was embarrassing. If you're a Bengals fan, that was embarrassing. Like, you should not have won that. Joe Flacco had 290 passing yards. He was in the top 5 this week of passers, if I remember correctly, from ESPN. Joe Burrow had 113 passing yards.
True, that's rough.
That's awful. That's awful for a Super Bowl caliber quarterback.
Yeah, for Joe Burrow, that's trash. That's terrible. Bad. I mean, heck, Dak Prescott put up more passing yards than that, and he's been having an off few seasons.
And I mean, Myles Garrett had back-to-back sacks to give the Browns a chance. I mean, Joe Flacco, like I said, he looked good, 290 passing yards, a touchdown, but you can't throw 2 interceptions. There's so many chances where they could have put points on the board, and they didn't. And you would expect a veteran of all people, Joe Flacco, to be able to get his team there. Now, I will say, one of the interceptions wasn't Flacco's fault. Joe Flacco's fault. He threw it Cedric Tillman. It wasn't like a perfect pass, but it was a good pass, and it bounced off his hands and it got picked off. So I can't blame Joe Flacco for one of those interceptions, but still, like, they had several times where they could have taken the lead. I mean, the Browns had a chance and their kicker missed a 36-yard field goal attempt. 36 yards. How? Like, genuinely, how? I know he's new. I get it. But, like, especially against the Bengals, I mean, this is a rivalry game for a reason.
Well, he also missed an extra point.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's worse. You know, that extra point right there would have made the difference. That would have been 17-17 overtime.
The Browns, which I can't believe I'm saying this, the Browns' offense looked way better than the Bengals' offense. Dylan Sampson had a great showing. He only had 29 rushing yards, but he had 64 through the air yards on 8 catches. He looked really good. I didn't put him in on fantasy this week, but he did look really good. They performed well, but it's that consistency problem with the Browns that you're always worried about, that they got to get over that hump, because they should have beat the Bengals. The Bengals looked bad. They really did. The Browns lost their own game here.
Well, I mean, if one thing is for sure this week, we figured out that the Ravens and the Steelers are definitely leading the pack.
Yeah.
Definitely, for sure.
Without a doubt. But moving on, we can't completely just bludgeon the Bengals. It is week 1. Everyone has to start somewhere, and the Bengals, per usual, are just not starting the greatest. But what can you do? Now, moving on to a fun game. The second, was he second or first? I don't know. It was either first or second. I think he was right behind Josh Allen. One of the leading passers through this week, Geno Smith and the Raiders knocked off the New England Patriots, like I said they would, out of a great performance from both quarterbacks. But Geno Smith did look overall better. 24 of 34 for 362 yards.
I chose this game terribly wrong.
1 touchdown and 1 interception. And on the flip side, Drake May only had a 39.2 passer rating, but he was 30 of 46 for 287 yards, a touchdown and an interception. The rushing for both teams was hardly there. Both teams barely even got above 50 yards rushing. It was a air-heavy game, much similar to the Chargers and the Chiefs. And of all the people that we expected to have a good season, it would be the two leading receivers for Las Vegas. Brock Bowers, the tight end, 5 catches, 103 yards. Jacoby Myers right below him with 8 catches for 97 yards.
Solid receiving numbers.
And then
solid.
on the flip side, the New England receiving, Stephon Diggs was not the leading receiver. He only had 6 catches for 57 yards. Hunter Henry was above him, and Kayshawn Booty, baby. Kayshawn Boutte. We'll make it all fancy. Kayshawn with 6 catches for 103 yards.
He looked fantastic. I was watching the highlights for that game, and I was just like, wow, this kid is on fire.
Who picked him up in fantasy? Does anyone have him?
Nobody that I know of.
I've never even heard his name until this game. I'm just being honest. I haven't.
Him and Hunter Henry were definitely leading the pack for the receiving. 103 yards for Kayshawn Booty, and then 4 for 66 for Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry looked really good that game. I was really impressed. He kind of looked like kind of reminded me of when Gronk was there.
There was a lot of good in this game for both teams, but I think Las Vegas showed why they are a more experienced team.
Las Vegas looked fantastic. Geno Smith and the new kids on the block is what this team needs to be called. You could definitely see Geno Smith that poised, calm, in control. He did have an interception. But I mean, that happens. But he looked very comfortable. He looked like he had plenty of time to assess the field, to figure out what his best wide receiving option was. But I mean, they looked fantastic. It's going to be an interesting conference in the AFC West this year, for sure.
Proving to be one of the most competitive conferences, at least from week 1. Ashton Jeanty didn't have a bad game. He only averaged 2 yards a carry, but he had 19 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. I think New England's defensive line really was stuffing them there, but I think really the second half the Raiders started to pull away, and they showed that experience. They have a good mix of like those veteran leaders where you need them, Geno Smith, but also that fresh talent that gives you a lot of promise. Kind of reminds me of the Broncos last year in a sense. The Raiders looked pretty good, and the Patriots I don't think looked bad, but the Raiders just looked like the better team. Still plenty of season to go, obviously, for these two teams. Moving on to an ugly game for both teams, and I was disappointed. I'm just going to be honest. I was disappointed. The Giants and the Commanders.
Oh, that was a very low scoring affair on the Giants' part.
21-6. Now, I know the Giants have some good defense this year. I can't argue that, but I don't think the Commanders' offense looked good. I think the Giants looked terrible.
I mean, and the 6 points wasn't even a touchdown. We got 2 field goals, one in the second quarter and one in the third quarter.
It was rough. It was rough. And you're starting to think like, okay, maybe it's, Daniel Jones wasn't the problem. I don't think Russell Wilson's the problem. You're starting to think that it might just be a coaching issue.
They were able to muster 231 total yards of offense, whereas in the Commanders, 432. That is terrible.
That's really bad. Russell Wilson was 13 of 37.
And you can't blame penalties because New York only had 6 penalties for 35 yards.
Jaden Daniels, 19 of 30 for 233 yards, but the rushing absolutely destroyed New York. New York had 74 rushing yards. Russell Wilson was the leading rusher. Washington had 82 yards from Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt.
He was looking really good.
Jaden Daniels had 68 yards. We know Jaden Daniels is going to run the ball, but Austin Eckler, 26 yards. Jerry McNichols, 25 yards. Deebo Samuel had 1 rush for a touchdown for 19 yards, but Washington just they didn't look like their elite caliber form that I expected, but I think that's mostly just in play because the Giants, as much as they were on the field on defense, they still were able to keep them out of the end zone consistently enough, but you can't just play defense all the time and expect not to get scored on. So the Commanders handled business. The Commanders looked better. I knew the Commanders would win this game. I had no doubt about it, but the Giants worse.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I didn't really know what Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was going to do, especially since they had him listed as the 4th running back on their depth chart. But, man, he keeps playing like he did yesterday. I'm going to see him passing up Austin Eckler before too long. He looked fantastic. That's, as a Washington fan, especially with the absence of Brian Robinson Jr., that's got to be exciting for all the Commanders fans. And something that kind of surprised me, too, was Scary Terry had a really off game. Really off game. Deebo Samuel was leading the pack for the receiving yards with 7 receptions for 77 yards. No touchdowns, The only person to get a receiving touchdown was Zach Ertz, but he wasn't really. He only had 3 receptions for 26 yards. So
I'll be honest, if the next few games go like this for the Giants, there's going to be a head coaching spot open soon.
And that just really just surprises me because Brian Dable, with the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills, and you've seen what he's done in years past. So not really sure what the deal is going on right there.
It's not good, whatever it is. It's not. You could blame coordinators, you could blame Dable, you could blame the whole entire franchise. Sometimes it's the general manager. I mean, you don't know the inner workings, and so it's hard to be critical of one person individual because we just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But we know how the NFL works, and so it's always the head coach that gets the brunt in first. So sometimes you just don't fit. Speaking of atrocious games, I would love to save this game for last, but let's just go ahead and go over it. Let's go over the Broncos and the Titans.
I don't know that I would call it atrocious.
I would call it atrocious. I hold the Broncos to a high standard, as I hold the Tennessee Volunteers to a high standard. And I watched this entire game through every single moment of this game. And I'm just going to say it. I was utterly disappointed. I think the Broncos deserved to lose this game. I think they got bailed out numerous times by their elite level defense. Their defense looked incredible, which I knew it would be. I think the Broncos are going to have one of the best defenses in the NFL again this year. Bo Nix and co did not have a good offensive performance, and they reminded me of the Tennessee Volunteers like 6 or 7 years ago when they were looking off on their formations. They were messing up the play clock. They didn't know where to line up. They just looked messy. They looked sloppy. They looked undisciplined. They looked like they weren't coached well. There was several times where I'm like, all right, you guys got some good yards. Go for a deep shot. And it's like, oh, we're just going to, run with Bo Nix on the sideline and then throw an interception because we're making him run to the left for 15 plays. I was disappointed. We got the win, but I was pretty disappointed.
I mean, the Broncos did manage to score every quarter. They did not go scoreless. They did not miss any field goals. They did not miss any extra points. They, had a fantastic run game. Between RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, they put up 133 rushing yards. I mean, that's fantastic. Courtland Sutton had a good game, 6 receptions for 61 yards. And, you had a few with everybody else. But, overall, I think the Broncos looked good.
The run game looked really good. J.K. Dobbins and RJ Harvey did not disappoint me. I've got J.K. Dobbins in this week on fantasy purely for this reason. 151 yards on the ground was good. That was a good... Woo! Timeout for station identification. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Sorry about that. We had a dog decide that they needed a little bit of attention, so they knocked over everything. That's okay. Dogs are dogs. We know this for a reason. Anyways, back to the Broncos and the Titans. It gave me a second to lower my blood pressure remembering this game. This game had 2 of the worst QBRs from any team. Bo Nix had a 19.2. Cam Ward had a 7.3. But I will say Cam Ward did look pretty good. I think his receivers...
He just didn't have any help.
They kept dropping everything. Not every single pass was a good catchable pass, but I was really shocked, especially Calvin Ridley. He did not
Absolutely. He looked like he had 2 cinder blocks for hands. And that is not like Calvin Ridley in years past. Tony Pollard leads the pack for receiving yards for this game with 29 receiving yards. 29. Then coming in second was Calvin Ridley with 27. Cam Ward didn't have any help. Definitely had some talent, and he looked good, but he just didn't have anybody to help relieve the pressure.
Yeah, it was the defense of the Broncos makes it really hard for any team, but they definitely made things really, really rough on Tennessee. But still, like I said, I'm holding Denver to a elite playoff level team, and they didn't look like an elite playoff level team this game. I know the Titans had a good defense, and they've picked up some good people on the flip side of things, but I don't think it was enough to make the Broncos look as bad as they did. So hopefully in week 2 they can clean that up, but we'll save that for later. Anyways, moving on to let's say the 49ers and the Seahawks. Another ugly game that really just didn't really have any highlights. It was kind of a sleeper game.
Yeah, 17-13.
I think this game had one of the shortest highlight reels on NFL's page.
They put up some good numbers, especially the 49ers. Brock Purdy coming in with 277 passing yards, 26 for 35. Christian McCaffrey looked good with 69 yards. He didn't get any touchdowns. He had 69 yards. Brian Robinson put up 33 yards. Ricky Pearsall was leading the pack with 108 receiving yards for 4 receptions. That's an average of 27 yards. That's fantastic. And then Christian McCaffrey, he contributed to the receiving game too with 73 yards. So, and Kittle got him a touchdown. He's not going to be there, but I think one of the biggest things that's disappointing offensively for the 49ers was Jake Moody and his missed field goals. Like, he's
no longer a 49er now.
As a field goal kicker, you've got to be able to get those clutch situations. I mean, they won the game, but he missed 2 of his 3 field goals. He only got 1. He had a 33.3% for field goals, and his longest was 32 yards. Not looking good for the 49ers kicking situation. On the flip side of the coin, Seattle, Sam Darnold, not a great record, 146 yards, but it could be worse. Not terrible. Jackson Smith contributed 124 receiving yards. That was really good. Cooper Kupp was a big disappointment to me. I was really shaking my head. How can you have somebody like Cooper Kupp on your team and only target him 3 times? Like, I know he's a little older than he used to be, but he's not washed. He's still got a lot of gas left in the tank, but to only target him 3 times and he only gets 2 receptions, I don't know. I think he's got a whole lot, he could be used a whole lot more. Zach Charbonnet had a good game with, 47 yards, 12 carries for 47 yards.
Not bad.
Kenneth Walker, not so much. 10 carries for 20 yards. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be the Zach Charbonnet show as far as the rushing goes in Seattle. But, however, their kicker got all of his field goals. Jason Myers was 100% for his 2 field goals, and he was 1 for 1 for extra points.
Well, we are taking quite a bit here, so I'm just going to briefly skim over this game. An ugly game. The Rams knocked off the Texans 14-9 off an abysmal performance offensively from the Texans. Nick Chubb was the highlight of the Texans for 13 carries and 60 yards. CJ Stroud, 19-27, 108 yards, and interception. Matthew Stafford looked pretty good, 21-29 for 245 yards and a touchdown. Kyron Williams leading the charge with 18 carries for 66 yards. Puka Nacua had a breakout performance, 10 catches, 130 yards. Devonta Adams, not too bad, 4 catches for 51 yards. All in all, the Rams, shockingly enough, did look like the better team. Texans looked like they were sputtering consistently through this game. They had a bad offensive stretch. They just seemed like they couldn't really gain a rhythm after the field goals. They just couldn't get anything going. The Rams took control, scored 2 touchdowns. They didn't have breakout performance, but I think the Texans do have a good defense, so that was a big contributor. I don't think the Rams are nowhere near on an elite level defense. I think the Texans just couldn't get going.
You want to talk about an ugly game? Let's talk about the Packers and the Lions. That was not what I thought it was going to be at all. Like, what a way to start with an NFC North matchup between the Packers and the Lions. Like, where the heck were the Lions at? Like, this was one of my anticipated games of the week.
Ben Johnson, come back.
We both chose the Lions, but 27-13, Green Bay. And then the Lions couldn't even score anything on the first quarter. They only was able to score 3 points the second and the third. Lions, what happened?
Kind of reminds me of when in 2022, when Tennessee's offensive coordinator in college football went to go coach at USF. You felt the impact immediately of him being gone, and you weren't sure how it was going to. I think that was the Lions here. Dan Campbell is notorious for his defense, but his offense really needed some help. That's not to discredit Green Bay's defense. I think Green Bay's defense, especially with the addition of Micah Parsons.
Oh, yeah. They shut down Jahmyr Gibbs. There was no chance for Jahmyr Gibbs to run. There was no rushing ability. Between David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams, you had a total of 46 rushing yards. So kudos to the Packers for their run defense, Yeah, they did not look like Detroit that we're used to seeing.
No, and Jared Goff was 31 of 39. I mean, that's not a bad 225 yards. He threw a touchdown. He threw an interception. Jordan Love looked fantastic. 16 to 22, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, he didn't go crazy, but he was consistent, and that's what you need if you're Green Bay, especially with that caliber of defense. I'll be honest, Green Bay looks scary. If they perform like this throughout consistently and they start out strong, Green Bay could be some serious contenders if they play like that. That defense was terrifying. Their defense looked incredible. Their offense looked like a well-oiled machine. Detroit looked like they were always one step behind. That was a shocker. That was a shocker for a lot of people. The Packers look good.
They sure did. And like, you never knew where Jordan Love was going to go because everybody was getting a little bit of the ball. With Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft. I mean, it was just all over the place. You didn't know where he was going to go, but that's good. That's what you want. You want those options. But yeah, Matt LaFleur, he definitely had a great start to week 1. That's for sure.
A lot of hope in Green Bay and a lot of question marks for the Lions. I don't think this is going to shape the Lions' season or anything like that, but it does make you question how well they're going to be offensively after that. Was the Packers defense that good, or are they really, really missing Ben Johnson? Time will tell, I suppose. But speaking of Ben Johnson, I want to save the Bills and the Ravens for last. Let's talk about this Monday Night Football game. Seth sent me, I'm just going to say it. He sent me a GIF, and it was saying the Vikings are trash. I agreed. I thought they looked terrible. I mean, I really did. Like, the first 3 quarters, I was like, wow, these guys suck. Like, JJ McCarthy is, I mentioned it in one of those clips. I was like, Caleb Williams is looking better. And Caleb Williams looked better for the first 3 quarters.
He looked fantastic.
But after that, it was all Vikings. I mean, JJ McCarthy pulled out that dog in him, pulled out did you forget I won the national championship? I only have 3 career losses in college and high school. He turned up, and that's the type of resilience that you would expect out of an elite level quarterback. And the Bears pulled the Bears, and they choked. They choked bad.
The Vikings put up 21 points in the 4th quarter. 21. I mean, talk about a Cinderella story. That was what Monday Night Football was. I mean, the stats don't look fantastic. 254 total yards of offense. But I think another thing that really hurt the Bears was they had 12 penalties for 127 yards.
That's awful.
127 yards. J.J. McCarthy coming in with 143 yards, 13 for 20. And really, Jordan Mason, I will say, looked really good out there.
Yeah.
He looked comfortable. I think that you can take comfort in the fact, if you're a Vikings fan, that you can put your hopes in Jordan Mason, because I think he's going to have a good season this year. And I think a lot of this game was just jitters. You had the meniscus injury last year, had to sit out all year. You're in Chicago on Monday Night Football. The whole world is watching, and it's like, oh my gosh, I just can't do this. Kevin O'Connell's like, hey buddy, just calm down, we're just gonna play football, just relax. And I mean, you saw a different JJ McCarthy the second half of that game than you did the first. He totally bounced back, and I think this is a clear indication of what he's capable of. I think if you give him a little bit more time, you're going to see him start to develop more and more as time goes. But, Caleb Williams, he did not look bad. He impressed me a lot. I was very impressed with Caleb Williams. 210 yards, 21 for 35. He looked comfortable, too. He didn't really look like he was sweating too much out there. He did have 0 interceptions. So, I mean, he looked good, too. He really did. You might see a different Chicago Bears team this season.
It felt like a tell of 2 different teams throughout the quarters. Like, JJ McCarthy displayed that I'm a rookie and I'm nervous. He didn't really have a time clock. He didn't have good pocket presence for the first 3 quarters. He looked nervous. He was overthrowing, underthrowing. He threw an interception. That was a pick 6. That had to hurt. But you saw the resiliency. And honestly, Caleb Williams, for those first 3 quarters, I was like, wow, Caleb Williams does look good. 4th quarter, he didn't throw any interceptions, but he was missing a lot. He was overthrowing receivers. He was underthrowing receivers. There were several times where I literally dropped my mouth open because he had a man open over the middle of the field, wide spanking open, and he'd either overthrow, throw too far to the right there. And I was like, you can't do that. I mean, that's that was one of the loudest games I've heard in Chicago. When Chicago was once that pick six happened, I mean, it was loud. Like it was really loud. I haven't heard a Chicago fan that loud. I don't think ever. Like it was loud, and it was like, wow, the Bears just look good, but man, I can't blame the Bears defense as much as I want to because Chicago just didn't have any offense in the fourth quarter. For like most of the fourth quarter, they had like -3 total yards. How does that happen when you have DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze? How does that happen? That's not, you can't just put that on coaching. That's good adjustments from the Vikings defense, and they look good, but there was a lot of missed opportunities from the Bears in that fourth quarter. And that was my biggest red flag for this team. Because if you just took the first 3 quarters, man, Chicago Bears might be a playoff contender. But that fourth quarter where it really matters, they choked bad. And trust me, teams choke. We know this because the Ravens choked the worst out of all of them. But that one really, really hurt. And that's what makes me so questionable about the Chicago Bears team. But speaking of the Ravens, let's move on to the
not arguably, the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the season, maybe. I'm just throwing that. Until the playoffs happen, this might be the game of the season.
The highest scoring game of the week with a total combined points of 81 points. Both teams with over 400 yards of offense. Ravens coming in with 432 total yards of offense. The Bills just 3 yards shy of 500 total yards of offense with 497. I mean, what a game. What a game. You know, like Toby said, it was getting really hairy there, and it was like, oh, man, this is not the good way that you want to start the season. But, you know, you can't really say much about the Ravens. They played a heck of a ball game. I mean, it was their game until the fourth quarter. I mean, they had it in the bag. Everybody's like, oh, Derrick Henry fumbled the ball. It's his fault. No. I mean, heck fire. Derrick Henry put up 169 rushing yards. The Bills could not stop Derrick Henry. It was the Bills versus Derrick Henry for the majority of the game. I mean, he was on fire. And then Zay Flowers coming in with 143 receiving yards. D-Hop had a little bit of action, not a whole lot, but I mean, both teams looked excellent. I mean, I think this is a maybe a possible AFC playoff preview later on for this season. But I mean, it's either team. They both showed up to play. Both teams were fantastic. Fantastic.
You thought it was crazy the Vikings putting that up. The Bills put up 22 in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was Josh Allen magic. That was incredible. You want to just look at the easy way and be like, well, the Ravens shouldn't have given that many points. Josh Allen literally looked like he couldn't miss even if he wanted to. That dude was hitting everyone in stride. Like, it was perfect. There were so many passes. I was like, how in the world did he hit that? And half the time he was running out of the pocket because the Ravens defensive line was getting after him. And that was just pure MVP. That was pure, I'm winning a Super Bowl game. Like, that was Josh Allen, almost 400 passing yards. That's insane. That's insane. For a week 1 matchup, calm down. Like, that's just incredible. It was a fantastic game. Lamar Jackson was incredible. Zay Flowers incredible. Derrick Henry was a tank. I mean, that clip, he's just running to the end zone. This Bill's safety comes over. He just shoves him to the ground.
The Derrick Henry Express.
He's nuts. That was fun football. And
I mean, Keon Coleman had a breakout game. He had 112 yards, 1 touchdown for 8 receptions. His longest was 25 yards. As a Bills fan, that was very nice to see somebody break through. And, can't discredit Dalton Kincaid. I had my eyes on him a lot because he had such a rough season last year. He managed a touchdown and got 48 yards. But, I mean, fantastic game. Fantastic game.
We've spent a lot of time going over these week 1 games. We're chugging it out, but we're gonna try to fly through these week 2 predictions because we don't want to be here too long. We're gonna try to keep it still within reasonable time. It's gonna be a long episode, so bear with us. Let's go ahead and go through week 2 predictions. I'm just gonna list every single one off. I'm not gonna go in depth on it. I'm just gonna list it off. Commanders and Packers. Done. I picked the Packers. I think the Packers knock off the Commanders just solely of the fact that I think the Packers looked really good. And I don't think the Commanders looked bad, but I'm just going off of how I think both teams performed. I think the Packers performed better against a better team, and I think the Commanders played down a little bit to a worse team. So I've got the Packers knocking off the Commanders. The Seahawks and the Steelers, obvious choice, got the Steelers. Steelers look good. Seahawks didn't look that great. I think the Steelers knock them off. Enough said. The Jaguars and the Bengals. I can't believe I'm saying this. I've got the Jaguars beating the Bengals. I still think Joe Burrow can turn it around and knock some dirt off and fix his team, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think the Jaguars look better than the Bengals. I think the Jaguars knock them off. The Rams and the Titans. I got the Titans. I got the Titans knocking off the Rams here. I think the Titans have a lot of potential, and I do think the Rams match well against them, but I think the Titans could really take the good and leave the bad from week 1 against Denver and knock off the Rams here. 49ers and Saints. I've got the 49ers. Even with the injuries, I do think the 49ers are better. They've got the better experience, and the Saints just don't look good. The Saints are going to be a laughingstock this season. Bears and the Lions. I do have the Lions. This is a grudge match. This is not bad blood, but old teams, old rivalries. I think the Lions are really upset about their week 1 loss. I think they're going to come out. I think they're going to wallop the Bears. Panthers and Cardinals. I've got the Cardinals. The Panthers didn't give me anything week 1 except heartbreak and sadness and failure to meet expectations. I think the Cardinals knock them off. I'll leave the second half.
All right. Bills, Jets. I chose Bills. I do think this is going to be a big game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a lot similar to the Bills and the Ravens game. One thing is for certain, when the Bills and the Jets always play, they always show up to play. So I went with Bills over Jets. Patriots, Dolphins. I chose the Patriots over the Dolphins because there was no Dolphins. There is no Dolphins. Like, they're not existent right now. So I'm going to give the Patriots their first win against the Dolphins. Eagles and Kansas City Chiefs. I went with the Eagles. Eagles going to overthrow the Chiefs. I don't think that should be that big of a problem. Browns, Ravens. That wasn't a hard choice. Ravens all the way. See, Falcons and Vikings. I chose the Falcons to overthrow the Vikings. I think they're going to have a really good game. Cowboys, Giants. I went with the Cowboys. Cowboys going to take over the Giants and going to have a really good game, I do feel. I think the Giants are really going to struggle against Dallas. Tampa Bay, Texans. I went Tampa Bay. And for probably, arguably, one of the games of the week for the AFC West, Chargers, Raiders, I went Bolts. Bolts over Raiders. Is that all of them? Did you do Broncos, Colts?
No, not yet. I left off quite a few.
So my picks, just all of them really quick. Washington with the upset over Green Bay. San Francisco over New Orleans. Jags over Bengals. Steelers over Seahawks. Rams over Titans. Colts over Broncos for the Battle of the Horses. Patriots over Dolphins. Cardinals over Panthers. Bills over Jets. Eagles over Chiefs. Ravens over Browns. Falcons over Vikings, Cowboys over Giants, Bucks over Texans, Lions over the Bears, and the Bolts over the Raiders.
I've also got the Bucks over the Texans. The Texans didn't give me a lot from week 1 to make me think that they look better than the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers have a lot of promise, and I think that they take this game. Chargers and Raiders. I've got the Raiders. I think the Raiders can knock the Chargers off. I really do. I think it'll be an extremely close game, much similar to how the Chargers and the Chiefs went. But I think the Raiders can knock off the Chargers. That's my upset pick of the week, is the Raiders. It's not really upset. I mean, they're both undefeated, but a lot of people are picking the Chargers for this game. I'm just going to go with the dark horse. The Raiders are my dark horse team this season, regardless. I'm going to pick the Raiders. Let's see. Browns and Ravens. Yeah, obvious choice. Got the Ravens. It's a rivalry game, but I would not be surprised if the Ravens beat them like 45-7. Just going to be honest. Cowboys and Giants. Similar situation. Rivalry game, but I think the Cowboys look levels above the Giants right now. The Giants really need to figure their crap out, or they're going to be looking for a head coach. The question's asked. Eagles and the Chiefs. Super Bowl rematch. A lot of bad blood here. Still think the Eagles look better. I don't think the Chiefs have enough. Patrick Mahomes is going to be running around trying to be like Josh Allen, but the problem is Josh Allen is better at doing that than Patrick Mahomes is doing. And it's going to be a struggle. This whole entire game is going to look like an uphill battle for the Chiefs, and the Eagles are going to comfortably win this game. Let's see. Falcons and the Vikings. I also went with the Falcons. I don't think the Vikings can pull that against the Falcons like they did against the Bears. You can't struggle for 3 quarters against the Falcons and then just knock them off. I don't think it's going to work unless it's in the Super Bowl, but that's a story for another
Ouch.
day. Patriots and Dolphins. Yeah, man. Patriots all the way. The Dolphins. Ugh, man, that was tough. 8 points. That was tough. No questions asked there. Is that everyone? Broncos
I
and
think
Colts.
so.
Broncos and Colts. Broncos all the way. Hello, this isn't even a question. Colts have no chance. Bo Nix is gonna get his head out of his butt, and the Broncos are gonna knock him off. You can't throw like you're not a backup quarterback against the Broncos. You're Daniel Jones. You're going down, buddy. It's not happening. There's
We'll
nothing
see
here for
about
you.
that.
Please. That's all the picks for week 2. We had to run through that because we have other things to go over. So this is a fun one. We're going to go over a question submission, 2 questions. I'll give it to Seth first to go over the first question from Pigskin Crazy.
Okay, we had a question submitted by Pigskin Crazy. The question is, how did you guys become NFL fans, and who are some of your all-time favorite players? I'll just give a little brief history about NFL fans, and I mean, I could have made a list a mile long of players, but I did not. Our family, football was a very, very big tradition. Our father and our uncles ate, slept, and breathed football. College football, NFL football, NCAA football on the PlayStation, Madden football on the PlayStation. But to me, I guess the biggest thing was the NFL was the end goal for everybody. If you were a college athlete, 9 times out of 10, your main goal was to get to the NFL. And in my opinion, the 90s and early 2000s is arguably the best era of football. I mean, everything was just a different mentality. People played harder. Everybody was wanting to win. It wasn't about, oh, I'm not getting paid enough. I'm going to sit down on the bench. It was, we're going to get out here and we're going to rally behind our team and we're going to win. Some of my favorite players, I did a list of 2, 4, 6, 8 players. I could have went on forever. Al Wilson, former Denver Bronco. Fantastic linebacker. Always loved watching Al Wilson play. Jamal Lewis. Always loved watching him run the ball. Fantastic. LaDainian Tomlinson. Jerome Bettis. Mike Allstott. Troy Polamalu. One of the best to ever play the game, in my opinion. Bruce Smith and Kyle Williams. 2 of my favorite defensive players on the Buffalo Bills of all time. So those are my reasons and some of my favorite players.
Much similar to Seth, we did grow up in the same household, believe it or not. Football was a major part of our lives. I remember watching Tennessee games early on and just falling in love with it, playing Madden. I'll never forget Madden 6, playing with Donovan McNabb on the Eagles. That was a lot of fun. Building your own my player and making him like 7 foot tall and the fastest 99 speed. And he's like, 300 pounds. And I played a game against the Colts as the Broncos, and I put like 200 points up doing that. I'll never forget that. Waiting for the next Madden games, playing the next Madden games, the uncle's bias Madden games. That was always just something you were excited about. Tennessee football, NFL, I loved all of it, and I still do. And that was just a major part of my childhood and a lot of other people's childhoods. And so, there's much like Seth, there's a lot of players I could put on my favorite all time. I'm just going to list a few. Eric Berry was one of my favorite players of all time, even though he only played for the Chiefs. You would think, me being a Broncos fan, that he played for Tennessee, and he was just when you think football and you think why football's so awesome, you think of Eric Berry. LaDainian Tomlinson, man, I love playing with him on Madden. That dude was always a beast. He was fantastic. No doubts about it. He was something. Antonio Gates, one of the most infamous tight ends ever. Gosh, I loved watching him play football. I mean, he was a beast, and throughout his entire career, I mean, it's hard to be like that, especially at that position. He was just incredible. One of the unfortunate storylines of recent years, one of the most infamous in Broncos history, the late great Demaryius Thomas. I loved watching him play. I mean, you could list Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas. You can go on and on about those receivers, but Demaryius Thomas, I think, when I think of elite receivers that had such incredible talents, and you just loved watching them play, you could just tell they were just a step above, and Demaryius Thomas was one of those. Peyton Manning, Tennessee Vols. He gave my Broncos a Super Bowl. He let me watch a Super Bowl victory for the Denver Broncos, set numerous records for the Denver Broncos, NFL. So much fun. Tom Brady, this one's for most people, but you just love to watch great players. Tom Brady is...
Unless you're a Bills fan.
Unless you're a Bills fan. Watching Peyton Manning and Tom Brady fight each other when Peyton Manning was, oh man, gosh, that was some good football. For my last one, I'm going to have to go with the OG Tim Tebow. I know he wasn't, when you think of greatest of all times, you don't put Tim Tebow on that list, but he was really fun to watch in Denver. And I think he was underrated in Denver. And I really liked playing with him on Madden too. But he's just a good dude. He's a good Christian man, good man of faith, and a lot of things that he stands for. So I loved watching Tim Tebow, and he's up there for people that when I think of football, why I love football, Tim Tebow's on that list. So that rounds that out. So we'll move on to the next question from Michael. Context, I'm a lot more into college football currently than Seth is. Seth is more in the NFL. I love college football. I keep up with college football every year. So I'm going to have some more to this. So I'll go first. Actually, no, I'll let Seth go first on this one. Question is, if you had to pick conference winners for the Power 4 conferences in college football, the ACC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the ACC, who would you pick?
I'm sure my answers are going to be way different. I'd say the only one we probably have the same is probably the SEC, and that might not even be the same. So for the Big 12, I went with TCU. Go Horny Toads. Big 10, I chose Penn State. ACC, I got Miami winning the ACC, and then for the SEC, I got Georgia. All right. Those are my picks.
That's actually not bad picks, except maybe the TCU pick. I don't really know a whole lot about TCU. The Big 12 is a big question mark, so honestly, I think anyone could win that. For the Big 10, I'll start with the Big 10. This one's a toss-up for me, but I got to go Ohio State. They still look incredible. I know they have a freshman quarterback, but they're elite for a reason. It's a tough conference. Penn State, Oregon, Washington, USC. It's always tough every year. Michigan State, Michigan. It's always like, wow, like who's going to win? But I really think Ohio State can win it again this year. So I've got Ohio State. For the Big 12, this is probably a safe pick for me, but I just don't know enough about these teams throughout the season. I'm going to go with Iowa State. They look so far in the early regular season. They look like the best team out of the Big 12. Houston looks promising. Central Florida looks promising, but they haven't really played anybody. Utah's doing some work. Arizona's doing some work, but I think Iowa State so far is the clear front runner for me, and I think they can take it off. They look good in their Ireland matchup against Kansas State. For the ACC, this one's going to be determined by a game coming up very soon, but I also went with Miami. Florida State or Miami is the clear front runners for this conference. I don't think anyone else looks good enough to compete with these two, and Miami did knock off Notre Dame already. Florida State obviously knocked off Alabama. So both teams are looking good. They both have a lot of talent. And honestly, I think it could go either way. But my front runner is Miami, but I think Florida State has a good chance at it too. For the SEC, this one was really, really tough. It's always tough. What am I saying? I don't think it's Georgia. I'm going to go with the veteran team, the team that went into one of the hardest places in college football to play and knocked off a top 5 team. I'm going to go with LSU this year. LSU is notorious for choking when they don't need to, but I think LSU looks better so far this season than Georgia. We haven't seen Georgia play anyone really good, but they struggled last week against kind of a mid team. The Tennessee-Georgia team is going to give me a lot of scope for the rest of the season for both teams. There's a lot of bad blood there. I think Tennessee literally does have a good chance to make it to the SEC championship this year. If they knock off Georgia, if they can beat Georgia, I think Tennessee could go to the SEC championship this year. However, I do have LSU winning. And that's not to downcredit Texas. That's not to downcredit Arch Manning. But I think LSU in a head-to-head against Texas, it would be a really, really big battle. It's either going to be Texas or LSU for the West going to the SEC championship, and it's either going to be Tennessee or Georgia going to the SEC championship for the East. But I do have LSU winning all of it. So that was a fun question. Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you, Michael and Pigskin Crazy, for those questions. We're making good time here. So we're going to end off. Actually, wait. Nope. Time out. Before I end off with the NFL fun fact, do you have anything else to go over? Just a quick PSA and a reminder, if you've made it this far into the podcast, there's a Google form link below that we just read from. Questions, comments, concerns, ideas, thoughts, soul-provoking things that stir our innermost being. Whatever. I don't care. Submit it down below. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. You could put a random name on. It doesn't matter. If you want to be on the podcast and you want to see us talk about your stuff, submit that form below. And go ahead and like the video and subscribe because it helps boost us to the algorithm. If you like our content, maybe someone across America doesn't hear it because the algorithm doesn't like us yet. We're small, so be sure to like. Anyways, NFL fun fact. I was scrolling through and I found one that honestly I thought was really cool that I even didn't know. The Green Bay Packers are the oldest team that still holds its original name. The team was established in 1919 and has
Wow.
never been renamed or relocated. Another interesting fact about the Packers is that the team is said to have the longest waiting list for season tickets in the entire league.
Wow.
It's so long, in fact, that you could live to be 100 and never get your chance at tickets, even if you've been on the list your entire life.
Wow.
So you don't think people in Wisconsin love football?
Very historic team.
They do. So that was the NFL fun fact. This has been a fantastic episode. A lot of fun with this one. There was a lot to discuss and a lot to go over. Closing thoughts.
If you have any disagreements or agreements with our picks, just let us know. One more thing before we leave. When it comes to the week 1 picks, I'm leading the pack right now with 12 correct picks for week 1. Toby coming in with 9. So we're going to be keeping track of this through the rest of the season. As always, thank you for listening. God bless.
We're both over 50% on our picks, so we at least know something a little bit. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun with this episode. Thank you guys so much for the love and support that you've been giving us so far. We've been enjoying it, and the NFL season is just starting, so there's a lot more to come. So if you like what you see, subscribe, like, share with your friends, share it with your grandma, watch it while you poop. I don't care what you do. Just stay tuned, and we'll see you next week for episode 5.